In this demo, we will deploy a custom UI and the webhook code on App Engine, and at the end, we will be able to test our agent. So I'm going to leave my Data Lab connection up and running in this Cloud Shell tab, and I'll just open a new tab in Cloud Shell to work on the UI code. So the first thing we'll do is clone this repo, and for the custom UI, we're using the Angular code that was written by Jeff Delaney and licensed under the MIT license. So I will change into the directory that we just cloned. And then change into the source directory. And I need to add a new folder called environments that we can put our environment configuration files in. So I'll create the environments folder and change into that folder. And we need to create two new environment files, so one for dev test environment and one for production. And then we can edit these files from the built-in code editor in Cloud Shell. So I'm going to click on the code editor. And expand this folder and go to the environments folder. So we'll go to the environment file. So I will paste in this environment code, and right now it just has a placeholder for your client token. So we need to get our client access token from our Dialogflow agent. So I'll go back to the Dialogflow console and go to the settings tab to find my client access token. So it's here under API keys section in the console. So I'm going to copy that and make sure that you copy the client access token and not the developer access token. And then I'll go back to my code editor and paste that in where it says your client token. And also be sure you leave the single quotes around this token, and then we'll save it. And we need to do the same thing for the environment.prod file. So in this case, I don't have two different agents for different environments, but you could do it that way. But since I just have one agent, I'm just going to copy this code from the environment file and paste the same thing into the prod file and also save it. So now that we've created those two files, I'm going to go back to my Cloud Shell. Okay, so I'm back in Cloud Shell and I want to go to the root directory of the project so I can make sure I'm in the right directory. And now we're going to run npm install to install all of the node modules that we need for this project. And I'm going to install the Angular CLI globally. Now we can run the ng-build command, and we'll pass it the prod flag so that it knows to look at our environment.prod folder. And this will compile the application into an output directory and store the build artifacts in a dist folder. We can look at the contents of our project directory now, and we see that it created the dist folder, so that's where all of our Angular build files will be. So this project subdirectory now contains all of the front-end Angular code that we need, but we still need to add an app.yaml file that will actually deploy our application to App Engine. So I'll go back to the code editor. And in the root project directory, we can add our app.yaml. So I'll do new file and name it app.yaml. Make sure it's in the project directory. So we'll paste this code into our app.yaml file and be sure to save it. And the other thing that we can look at in this code is the chat service file. So we can go into source, app, chat, and look for chat.service.ts. So this file is what actually will instantiate this API AI client object and pass in our access token that we put in the environment.ts file. So this is what actually fetches the fulfillment.speech data from your Dialogflow agent and populates the Angular UI. So going back to our Cloud Shell terminal, now we're ready to deploy this front-end application to App Engine. So we can make sure that we're in the root directory and we see our app.yaml file in the root directory. So now we can just run gcloud app deploy and it will deploy this default service to App Engine. Now that it's finished, we can go to the App Engine dashboard and we can click on our AppSpot URL and we should see the Angular UI. So this is what the Angular UI will look like. And we still need to deploy our webhook to populate the UI with responses from the Dialogflow agent, so we'll do that next. Now that we've deployed the front end to App Engine, we can take a look at the webhook backend code. So I'm going to clone the webhook code from a cloud storage bucket. So now that we've cloned the code from cloud storage, we can go back into the code editor and take a look at the webhook code. So we'll look at the main.py file. Right now, this file doesn't have any authentication in it. It just has a method to handle the requests that come into our webhook. It has another method to get the response based on the topic that's passed in, a method to return the reply, which is the fulfillment text, a method to get synonym if there are any synonyms that are passed into the query, a method to get the action text, so that's what does the lookup on our topic entity. And then we have an error handling method if the server throws any 500 errors, and we have a class for topic and a class for synonym, and both of those map to our data store entities. Now we can look at the app.yaml for our webhook service, which will deploy as a separate service in App Engine. So if we look at this app.yaml, we see that a new service is named called Dialogflow. So this is the backend service for our webhook that we'll deploy to App Engine. So going back to the Cloud Shell console, first we need to run pip install to install everything in our requirements file. And now we can run gcloud app deploy from the webhook subdirectory, so it will know to look to the app.yaml file in that subdirectory to deploy our Dialogflow service. Now that it's finished deploying, we can go to the services section of our App Engine dashboard. And now we see that we have two services. So we have the default service, which is the Angular UI that we deployed previously, and that's our base URL. And now we have this additional Dialogflow service. So we can click on this service. And even though it says not found, we don't care about that at the moment. We just want to grab this URL for this service. And now we can go to the Dialogflow console. So we'll go to the menu and go to fulfillment. We need to enable the webhook, and we can paste this service URL in as the webhook URL and be sure to add webhook with the trailing slash at the end, and we'll hit save. And once that's done, now we can test our chatbot. So we'll do tell me about annual salary in the test console, and we get a response back from our webhook. Now that we see our secure webhook working in the Dialogflow test console, we can go back to our custom UI that we deployed on App Engine and test it out there as well. So from our custom UI, we can type the same phrase, tell me about annual salary, and we see that we get a response back same as we do in the test console. This shows that both our Angular UI and our backend webhook are deployed on App Engine and working.